Hello, everybody. This is the third and final video in the Intro to Pilates series. You can watch this at your convenience. And then you can join the Tuesday, Thursday class, which we have regular and we do live every week on Tuesday and Thursday at 12. And these this 3-part series that we've done is just meant to give you a little bit of an intro to what we do in the Tuesday, Thursday sessions and give you the tools to not just feel like completely brand new when you step into that class. So hopefully you'll join that class. And we'll try to just put some kind of icing on the cake here. But you've already got an introduction to some of the most fundamental principles of Pilates, which is breath, right? So breathing in a way that we call diaphragmatic breathing, which is, we went over this in the very first video, which you can always review, right? Your diaphragmatic breath occurs by expanding your rib cage from like mid rib cage all the way down to the base of your pelvis, right? Expand out to the sides, contract in towards the center, right? So out and in, right? Side to side, front to back, top to bottom, right? That is diaphragmatic breath. We want to try to not breathe up into our chest. And you don't have to be hyperventilating to be kind of a chest breather, right? If we are chest breathers, we just feel that our breath kind of stays high and shallow. It's not a super functional way to breathe, even though most of us, including myself, do it a lot. So you may just think about kind of how your breath occurs in your body. So breathing is kind of the foundation to not just Pilates really, but like all movement. So you can take that into whatever practice you do regularly, that we really should all be trying to breathe in a diaphragmatic way. And then we incorporated how that breath helps to connect our body to our core, right? And so we use our core to stabilize our spine, whether we're asking our spine to be totally stable, not moving at all, or really mobile, right? Either way, we want as much support from the core as possible. And there are those two different ways to move the spine, mobilizing the spine or stabilizing it, and how our breath connects us to our ability to either mobilize or stabilize with support. So that was video number 1. Video number 2, we incorporated some of those principles into a lot of the different shapes that we see in Pilates, all of which, I mean, all movement is either asking your spine to be stable or mobile, right? And so we want to carry that into some of the other Pilates movements that we do. And we want to continue to think about how our core, or how our breath connects us to our core, and how our core helps us create the shapes in our spine that we're trying to create, right? And a strong core is really useful because when we're out in the world playing sports or lifting heavy things or even lifting light things, we want to know, like, biomechanically the best way to move our body, to support our body so that we're not making ourselves more prone to injuries. We want to develop good motor patterns, which we focus on in Pilates. And, you know, in sports or something like that, where we're encountering a lot of unpredictability, we want to think about our core as being prepared to react to those outside forces, right? So if you're going to like hit a soccer ball with your head, you know, your body doesn't have time to think about, oh, is my spine stable? Is my breath happening, right? We want to kind of embed all of these things in our nervous system so that our nervous system can just react in the best way possible to all of those unpredictable outside forces, right? So this is where we train all of that so that you can go out into the world and be free and not get injured as easily as you may if you hadn't laid down these really fundamental patterns. So that's kind of like what Pilates is all about. or really just what movement, like intentional trained movement, even if you're just in the gym and you're using free weights or weight machines by yourself, the goal is really the same, right? Pilates just approaches it from a slightly different angle. Yoga approaches it from another slightly different angle. Weightlifting approaches it from a different angle, right? But they're all getting into this central theme of making our body stronger for injury prevention so that we can do the things that we love to do without getting injured so easily. So that's kind of how we want to think about how this all comes together in the end, right? And that's just kind of what we do in Pilates. We just train to be like better movers out in the world, basically. So let's get started. We're going to get started like we always do. In every class, we start with breathing, and we start with trying to find that diaphragmatic breath, right? So you can take your hands onto your rib cage, onto the sides of your rib cage if you want, or you can just lay your arms down by your sides, kind of whatever works for you. And you're going to breathe. You're going to breathe intentionally, thinking of expanding your rib cage side to side, really taking a big inhale all the way down into your pelvic floor and expanding as three-dimensionally as you can through that whole lower quarter. Rib cage all the way down to the base of your pelvis. And a lot of times in Pilates, we're breathing in through our nose and out through our mouth. That's really stimulating our parasympathetic nervous system. So it's allowing our body to receive information and process that information a little bit more efficiently through our nervous system. If we stay in our chest, our brain is not quite as connected to receiving and creating new information, new pathways in our motor system, right? So we want to make sure that we allow ourselves to take a moment to get into our breathing before we ask our body to start learning new things. So always take a couple moments, right? Even if you're feeling stressed or something like that, breathing is always going to tap you in to your parasympathetic, your rest and digest nervous system, right? So we want to do that. We want to be there more often than we want to not be there. And again, deep breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth is a great way to breathe. And then we're just going to try to layer some movement on top of that. So you're going to lift your arms up to the ceiling. You're going to exhale, reach your arms overhead. Right, so part of the beauty of connecting to our breath is that it connects us to our core when we exhale, right? The inhale is expanding the core. It's like stretching the core. And then the exhale is contracting the core, taking it from that massive expansion into as much contraction as you can without like making your face turn red, right? Inhale the arms up. Exhale the arms overhead. Feel the ribs start to reach down towards the pelvis as you contract your core through your exhale. And lift the arms up and lower the arms down, right? We're asking for spinal stability here. Lift the arms up. Exhale, reach the arms overhead. Inhale, lift the arms up. And exhale, lower back down. A couple more times, just breathing and moving. Inhale and exhale. And inhale, lift the arms up and pause here. You're going to reach your fingertips towards the ceiling and separate your shoulder blades away from your spine. And then let the shoulders drop just heavy into the mat, right? Kind of clunking. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, drop. And inhale, reach. And exhale, drop. A few more. Inhale, reach. We're mobilizing our shoulder blades on the back of our rib cage. Right, we don't want to leave the shoulder blades stuck back there because we need the shoulder blades to move as we move our arms. Right, so shoulder blades rolling away from the spine, shoulder blades dropping back to the floor and coming towards the spine. Then you're going to open your arms out to the sides. Your shoulder blades are going to stay wide. I want you to get a sense that your shoulder blades are wide and they're just staying there. And then bring your arms back up. And again, open wide. And up. A couple more times. Open. And close. And open. And toes. Go ahead and bring your arms down by your side. So all of that is done with a neutral and stable spine. Just to review, neutral spine and pelvis are a little bit of a light space underneath your low back, heavy ribs, light space underneath your neck, heavy back of the head. Obviously, the space underneath your neck is bigger than the space underneath your back. Let that be happening in your body, right? You don't want to like pull your back up as far as your neck is up, right? But they do mimic each other, those two curves away from the mat, just varying degrees, right? So from here, with that stable neutral spine, we're going to take the neutral quality out of it, and we're going to flatten our low back onto the mat by intentionally tucking our pelvis. Pubic bone pulls towards the belly button, and then you untuck the pelvis, right? Or we call this pelvic rocking. Exhale, tuck the tail under, and inhale, untuck. As you do this, you want to ask your belly to do this work, not your butt. Your butt stays relaxed. Our butt is made for power. Our belly is made more for stability, right? So you're going to ask your belly to move your spine, and you're going to leave your butt for all the powerful jumping movements that you do. So tuck the tail under, spinal mobility with core engagement. That's what we're doing right now. Untuck and tuck the tail under and untuck. Now, as we tuck the tail under, you're going to use your belly. Then we're going to begin to lift the hips away from the floor. And now we get to use our glutes and our hamstrings. I want you to peel your hips up like a banana peel coming off of the banana. Right? Which we call in Pilates articulation. And we see this in multiple different movements, sitting, standing, rolling, right? But it's all the same. And roll back down, bone by bone. We're asking for spinal mobility with core control and support from the core, right? Exhale, tuck the tail under. And peel the hips up, reaching your knees over your toes, stepping down into the feet. And then you're going to roll your spine all the way back down and untuck your tail. Do that again. Tuck the tail under and peel the hips up. Awesome. And then roll the spine down. So in class, we do various progressions where we start with a base movement like this, and then we add on to it, right? So if you are in class and we start to get into some progressions and you're like, whoa, that's really, really hard, you just stick with the previous iteration of that exercise, right? So I'm going to add something here. If you're like, that's not for me, then you don't do it, and you just keep rolling up, opening the hips, working on your articulation and your bridge, and you keep rolling down, right? And I always encourage you to at least try one of the new variation and then decide if it's for you or not, because sometimes our edge moves. We want to be testing where that edge is all the time. So here I am lifting my hips, my spine is lifted. Now I'm going to ask my spine for a lot of stability. I do not want it to move, and I don't want my pelvis to move. As I lift my right leg off the mat and then lower it back down. Self-tactile cues are super nice to figure out, am I moving? What's going on? I can't really tell, right? Because we don't have the feedback from the floor anymore. So here I am lifting one leg, setting it back down, and then lifting the other leg and setting it back down. I'm going to roll back down through my spine, bone by bone, right? So if you got there and you were like, that was too hard. I didn't feel stable. I didn't feel like I was doing movement very well. Then you can stick with the previous exercise, right? The previous iteration, and you just keep doing that until you feel confident to move on, right? And so we're going to do that variation one more time. You're going to tuck your tail under, peel your hips up, stepping down into your feet. Hips stay nice and stable. Arms are pressing down actively into the mat as I lift the right leg to tabletop. I'll lower it down. Lift the left leg. Lower it down one more time. Each side. You're breathing still. And you're moving. And then you're going to roll your spine all the way back down. Excellent. Let's bring the legs each into tabletop, right, or chair position. Knees are right over the hips. Feet are right in front of the knees. That's my tabletop. I'm going to lift my arms up to the ceiling. And I'm in my dead bug position now. That's what we call this, right? So now we're back to that idea of spinal stability. We don't want the spine to move around as we move the arms and legs around. So you're going to tap your right toes down, bring them back up. Same with the left. Tap them down, bring them up. You're just looking for your spine to stay in a neutral and stable position, right? So no super arching through the low back, no super rounding through the low back. Try to keep your ribs integrated into the front of your body, right? That's kind of all of the points that you may be looking for. You might also let your thought process wander up to your head and make sure that your head isn't starting to crane, right? And you're also not pushing your chin into your chest. When you're ready to add your opposite arm reaching back, you're going to do that. Opposite arm reaches back, and you lift back up, right? All the while, we're keeping the spine in the neutral and stable position. Awesome. And go ahead and relax. Okay, so we did the hips up with the feet down, our articulation. Another way that we tend to move in Pilates is into a rollover type movement where we're bringing our legs up and over our head. And you may think about that and be like, that is not going to happen in my body. That's okay. I promise we have variations for you, right? It's infinitely scalable. All of these movements are. So we can preserve the stimulus and scale it to wherever you are, right? That's the thought process. That's why everybody can do Pilates. So what I want you to do now is cross one ankle over the other and create a little hook with your feet. Now I want you to try to pull your feet apart to create some tension in your lower body. So from here, I'm going to press very vigorously down into my mat with my arms, and I'm just going to try to lift my butt off the mat enough to slide a piece of paper underneath, or even maybe like a yoga block, right? So you can lift just the tiniest little bit, or you can lift like a few inches. Go ahead and give it a try. You're going to use your exhale to float your hips up, right? So here we go. Deep inhale to prepare, and exhale, float up and back down. Awesome, you did it. Do it again, 3 more times, and then we'll cross the other ankle on top and do it again. Okay, deep inhale, exhale, lift up, and lower down. And again, exhale, lift up, and lower down. One more time, exhale, lift, and lower. I'm gonna cross my other ankle on top. I'm trying really hard to keep my shoulders open and engaged. I really would love for my shoulders not to pop off the mat. I want to keep the back of my shoulders engaged. So again, inhale, exhale, curl up. And 3 more times. Exhale, curl. And exhale, curl. And last one. And relax. Awesome. So eventually we progress that into rolling legs up and over the head, and then rolling the spine down, and then rolling legs up and over, and rolling the spine down, right? So in class, I generally give that longer leg variation, and I also give the short leg variation, right? So either one are acceptable. They all build strength in the appropriate places. All right, so that was rolling our legs up and over our head. And then last time we were here together, we rolled our head and shoulders up and forward, right? So we're going to start with just a little chest lift. You're going to exhale, nod your chin towards your chest like you're sliding a piece of paper out from underneath your head, and then curl head, neck, and chest up, tips the shoulder blades by dropping the ribs back into the mat, right? So I'm going to lever my head, neck, and chest up because I'm dropping my ribs down, right? So one is a reaction to the other. It's a lot nicer than like lifting the head on its own because it's so much neck work. It's more neck than we need, right? Nod your chin towards your chest, drop your ribs down to curl up, and then lift the arms and go back down. Last time I talked about a really nice variation where if you cannot get out of your neck, take the corners of your mat, use your mat to help you curl up, right? It's a really nice way to not get into your neck. So now we're going to take that upper body curl and we're going to roll all the way up to a seated position. Notice that we are doing spinal mobility with articulation as we roll up, right? So it's the same thing as our hip lift, the bridge. It's the same thing as the roll over. We're just doing it in a slightly different way, but it's the same stimulus, right? And then you're gonna roll back down. Like I said last time in the video, I really care less about what your roll up looks like because sometimes it's pretty hard to go against gravity to lift yourself up. But everybody can find a little bit of control when you roll down. So that's the part that I like to pay more attention to. It's also where we can build some strength for our roll up. Go ahead and peel all the way back up. Reach forward and then roll all the way back down. Awesome. You're going to bring your arms down by your sides. We're going to move on a little bit more quickly. You're going to bring your right leg to tabletop, and then you're going to straighten your right leg to the ceiling. Now, if you're like, I can't straighten my leg to the ceiling without like pushing my back into the mat, distorting my body in a bunch of different ways, there are a few things that you can try. One is taking that straight leg and bending it, right? And then seeing like, oh, maybe I can straighten my leg now, maybe not, right? Then maybe you take the long leg or the lifted leg and you bend that too, right? Either one of these variations are fine. Maybe you're here, maybe it's a combination. I always will illustrate and give various variations in class so that you can pick something that works for you and that preserves the stimulus that we're after, right? So I'm gonna choose this long, low leg and bent moving leg. I'm gonna put a little paintbrush on my knee up towards the ceiling, and I'm gonna draw a little circle on the ceiling with that paintbrush, right? So my lower leg is just along for the ride. My lower leg could be here and it wouldn't matter, right? But I'm stirring my thigh bone in the hip socket, right? And you can see that as we lengthen the leg or bring the leg from there to here, right, to tabletop, it becomes a little bit more challenging to stabilize the spine. And then if I straighten my leg all the way to the ceiling, it becomes even more challenging to keep my spine stable and neutral and to keep my leg straight. Good. Go ahead and bend. Switch sides. I'm going to start again with the bent leg. I'm going to actually start with my foot dropping down like this because it feels really good. And it really allows you to take the tension out of the front of your thigh so that you can really feel some nice mobility in the hip. You want to try to preserve that mobility as you bring the foot a little higher into a tabletop type position. And then think about either staying there or straightening your leg towards the ceiling, making sure that your spine stays neutral and stable, right? Don't compromise your stability to gain mobility, right? Because that doesn't work well in the body, doesn't last, right? Your mobility doesn't last that way. We want lasting mobility. Good. Go ahead and relax. Set the foot down. Awesome. I'm going to have you now turn on to your side. We're going to think about some side body stability. So again, I give lots of variations of how we can accomplish side body stability in class. And we generally start completely down on the arm, like so. And I'll go through a few different progressions here today. You're going to lengthen your top leg long, and you're going to notice that when you lengthen your leg, it pulls your pelvis towards the leg, right? Takes your bottom waist and makes it a little bit lighter on the mat, and I want you to feel that, and I want you to keep that. This is our neutral, stable spine and side lying. You're going to lift the leg up, and you're going to make sure that that waist didn't collapse to get the leg up, but the waist stayed lengthened and light to get the leg up, right? And then we get some really glorious side hip work, which is an important functional component for developing lateral stability, which protects us against like ACL tears and meniscus tears, knee strain, right? Especially if you play a sport like basketball or soccer or football, or any kind of sport that includes like cutting right and left. We really want to be super stable in our lateral hip muscles, because that's going to preserve our joints a lot more. So you're going to lift and you're going to hold, right? You kind of can quickly get this little burning in the side of your hip right here. That's okay. Let it happen. You're going to kick the leg forward, and you're going to try to keep the leg hip height, right? So the magic in all these side lying movements is just not letting the leg drop down, not letting the leg lift up so much that you have to roll your side into the mat, right? It's keeping the leg about hip height, right? Maybe a little bit higher. And then sweep the leg back, right? And I'm trying really hard not to rock back as I kick forward and not to rock forward as I kick back, right? Not that that's wrong, but we just want to make sure that we do things on purpose rather than just react, at least in here, right? So that our reactions out in the world are a little bit stronger and more well-formed, right? Because we don't have time to think about it. So we want to give the time to think about it here. You're going to pause with your leg back, and you're just going to do little circles. So now stability in the spine, mobility in the hip, reverse those circles because my butt is burning. Good, go ahead and bend your knee and let the knees come together. So we do a variations of a bunch of different shapes with the leg, right? We bend, we straighten, but the whole time, the two number one most important things are keeping that leg hip height, right? No matter what we're doing, keeping the leg hip height, unless the direction is like lift your leg up as high as you can and let your waist round into the mat, then you can do that, right? So keeping that leg hip height and also keeping your spine stable, unless you're instructed to not keep the spine stable, right? Which we do on purpose sometimes. There are variations where we come up to the forearm. Yeah, totally a lot harder. It's kind of the gist of this, right? Because all of a sudden I've taken my torso and I've made it part of my thought process now. When I was lying down on the ground, it was a little bit easier to just kind of like let the leg work on its own. But when I come up to my forearm, what I'm all of a sudden forced to think about is the stability of my spine in this more lifted and engaged position. So we want to make sure that we're not just like hanging and squishing the shoulder joint, but that we're lifting the rib cage away from the mat, and that this shoulder is open, it's rolled back in external rotation, and it's strong, right? Our spine is straight. head to tail, right? Spine is straight here. Spine is curved here. No curved spine. We want straight, stable spine, right? And we will do all of the same types of things here. We will open and close. We can do some kind of like rehab type exercises like clam. We can do internal rotation of the thigh bone, external rotation of the thigh bone, internal, external, right? Those are terms that I will use often. I will always explain what they mean, but internal rotation of the thigh bone is when the thigh bone rolls towards your center line. External rotation of the thigh bone is the opposite. Thigh bone rolls away from your center line or from your spine. All right, so then we're gonna go onto the belly and we're gonna talk about a little bit of extension, which we did last time as well. So sometimes when we get onto our belly, our body assumes a different shape, just depending on how tight we are. Sometimes our hips will kind of pop up off the mat and create like a little mountain. If our hip flexors are tight, that can definitely be a thing, right? So as much as you can, you're trying to open up the front of the hips so that the front parts of your hips, all front part of your hips, is laying down flush on your mat. Sometimes if our shoulders are tight or if we just lay down, we kind of like prop ourselves up like this, where our chest is lifted and our shoulder blades are squeezed together and then our head falls down, right? So as much as you can, you want to open those armpits towards the floor and you want to lay your chest as far down towards the mat as you can so that you have kind of like this wide hammerhead shark shape to your upper body. And then if your low back tends to bother you, if your back gets really tight, feet wider is a much nicer position than feet narrow, right? So you can kind of choose where you want to be. Just pay attention to how it feels in your body and don't force yourself into positions that don't feel good, okay? So your forehead is going to be down on your hands. And I want you, I'm gonna turn my head to the side just so that I can talk at you, right? I want you to feel your hip bones open towards the floor, but then also feel the bottom of your butt cheek push towards the floor without squeezing your butt, right? So you're just setting your pelvis in a really nice neutral position. We're gonna try to keep it there and you're gonna feel your belly button pull away from the mat so that you're not allowing your low back to just kind of hang into the mat. So we're gonna try to keep all of that and then we're gonna try to move, right? So all I want you to do now is to float your head up and then float your head back down. Your eyeballs are still looking down at your hands and you're thinking about all of those different pieces that you just set. Butt cheeks into the back of the thigh bones, hips open, belly lifted, float the head up, and then back down. Good, and again, float up, put a little gentle pressure down into your elbows to try to connect underneath your armpits, and then back down, couple more, float up, and down, and float, and down, once more, float, and down. Let's bring the hands under the shoulders. We're gonna lift into a bigger extension, but all of the stuff stays the same. You're gonna float the head up, right? Now you can come up a little higher and you'll notice that maybe your belly button wants to fall into the mat. Try to keep it pulled into your spine, right? Pull it in. Hips stay open, butt cheeks stay driving down into the back of your thigh bones, elbows stay planted and driving down. And then lower head. Do that again, peel up. Gentle pressure down into the elbows and then lower back down. Couple more. Peel up. And back down. Once more, peel up. Now hold it here. See if you can stay centered and keep all of the things happening. Reach your right arm forward and up and back and down. Left arm forward and up and back and down. Right arm forward up, back, and down. Left arm forward and up and back and down. Go ahead. Press back into child's pose. That was a lovely. Let's see what's going on here. All right. So we're just going to do a quick other side lying position. We're just going to lie down completely on the arm. Lengthen the top leg long. Bottom waist is lifted and light. Lift the leg up. Lower the leg down. Right? Just explore. Lateral hips. Up and down. Couple more. And then pause, bring the leg forward, keep the spine stable, bring the leg back. Bring the leg forward and back. And one more, forward and back. Last one, forward and back. Awesome, right? And then we came up to the forearm and we just explored, right? We're up on the forearm. We press the forearm down to get the shoulder to open, the ribs to lift. We keep the spine stable and engaged, and we just do a few clamps, right? We're thinking about the same thing. Hip doesn't roll back. Everything stays like a secret. It's a secret from the rest of your body that your leg is moving because it's staying so still, right? That's kind of the idea. And then we're going to go roll the thigh bone in for internal rotation, right? Internal rotation. Roll the thigh bone out, external rotation. And in and out. And internal and external. One more. And external. Go ahead and relax. Awesome job. So we're going to turn onto our hands and our knees now. Hands are right underneath the shoulders, knees are right underneath the hips. This is our quadruped position. Same idea, nice long, stable spine, right? We want to avoid disconnecting the ribs and the hips unless we're meaning to. Sits bones are pointed directly behind you. Toes are going to curl under onto your mat, and you're going to float your knees up. You're going to keep your spine stable. Your belly button stays lifted towards your spine. And then lower back down, right? And lift again. And lower down 2 more times. Lift. And lower. And last one, lift. And lower. We're going to keep challenging the stability of the spine. Reach the left arm forward and the right leg back. Hands and toes stay down. Right? So I'm just reaching. I'm not reaching so much that it kind of takes my shoulders out of position. And then I bring them back down. Do the other side. I want you to imagine that there's like a little cup of water between your shoulder blades and a little cup of water on your sacrum, and it's not going to spill as you move your arm and leg away from each other. One more time, each side. Right, so this is kind of like our dead bug that we did on our back. We just are making it harder because you're not on your back, you're on your hands and your knees, right? So this progresses us into plank. The variations for plank are, you can be on your hands, or you can be on your hands and your knees, you can float your knees up, that's fine. Stay there if you're working on that. You can stay on your hands, you can bring your legs back to plank. That's also okay, right? You want to make sure that when you are in plank with long legs, whether you're on your hands or your forearms, totally okay too. Those positions, we don't want to stick the butt up and arch the back. We want to actually tuck the tail, butt cheeks into the back of the thigh bones. So it's more similar to when we lie down on our belly, keeping the hips open. The belly slightly lifted and engaged, right? We just take that and we push it up onto longer arms, right? And so we do lots of variations in plank. And I always give lots of options for where to be. Forearms is a great place to be in your plank. when you are on your forearms though, I like to cue people to keep your arms parallel, like the number 11, as opposed to a triangle. This is an unstable position for your shoulders. This is a stable position for your shoulders, where we can start to access the under armpit muscles and not just start to crowd the front of the shoulder, right? So that is our conclusion for our intro to Pilates. You can always join the Tuesday, Thursday classes without watching these, right? It's just totally up to your comfort level. Or you can watch these 5 times and then you can join, right? But you are always welcome. And, you know, you just pop in whenever you're ready and we would love to have you. So thank you so much for joining me these last 3 weeks, and hopefully I'll see you some Tuesday and Thursday. Okay, feel free to email me with any questions that you might have also. I'm happy to answer them if I can. All right, thanks again.